Hello, and welcome to Culture Conversations, the podcast where we explore the people side of work. I'm your host, Megan Robinson. For years, I've found myself deep in discussions about workplace engagement with industry experts. Now I get to share this wisdom with all leaders, new and experienced, on their journeys to build cultures that maximize potential. We spend so much of our lives at work. Let's make it a place where our teams can grow and succeed. Hello and welcome back. I am so excited to be here with Mr. Brad Fisher as we are going to dive into a really exciting conversation about technology, humanity, and how we're really blending the two and the effects that it's having on us. So important when it comes to culture and our organizations and how we use these tools really intentionally. When I kick us off here, we're just going to start with Brad Fisher. He works with business leaders who want to unlock the long-term potential of their companies and their families. Brad speaks and writes about scalability, leadership, and family business matters. He recently published a book called Family Business Abundance. Brad is the co-founder and partner of the Scalability Leadership Group and Featherstone Holdings. He has devoted most of his career to entrepreneurship in the business-to-business, technology, healthcare, and investment management arenas. Brad works on multiple ventures during his early career, including AIM21 Incorporated, a software company. And after selling AIM21 to Reuters, he founded Tailwind Incorporated, an online resource center for entrepreneurs and small business owners. The American Towns Network also acquired Tailwind. Brad Fisher received his MBA from Stanford University and a BS in economics from the University of Minnesota. He is and has been a board member of many fine companies and non-for-profit institutions. I love that it's just many fine companies.
I'm old.
Too many to count. All of them are fantastic. I'm so excited to have you for this conversation, Brad. And I asked you what you were really passionate about and interested in when it comes to culture, you said the accelerating progression of technology and the impacts it's having on humanity. And I just stopped and said, wow. I've had several conversations this week. It is bone chilling on what is happening, and it feels so out of control. So I'm going to go ahead and just turn to you on what are some of the things that you're noticing as we have this progression in technology, as humanity is evolving? What are some of the trends and things that are concerning or exciting for you?
Well, Megan, first of all, thank you. It's really a pleasure to be here. I've been looking forward to this conversation. And I guess I would focus on the word acceleration. So when we talk about technology, first of all, I'm not a professional technologist. I was responding to a question that you asked me of what interests me in terms of what's happening in society. So sort of from the sidelines as an amateur, I've been looking at this for many years. Of course, our company, which is focused on building structural scalability into growth stage companies and helping develop the leaders of those companies so the leaders can be scalable too. That's our work. So we deal with technology a lot in this small way with individual companies. But what I was speaking about was the progression of the development of technology and the impact that it's having on our society. And it's kind of snuck up on us over the last few decades. So if you really want me to answer that question, I'm going to go back a few thousand years. You know, it's unclear exactly when you draw the line of humanity and Homo sapiens, our species, but one thing is clear: for tens of thousands of years, technology did not advance very much. And even into 400 or 500 years ago, you could be pretty sure that the technology you had was the same as what your parents had and your grandparents had and your great-grandparents. And slowly, there were inventions, fire, the wheel, various things, water-based power from hydro, mills and whatnot. But then around, in the Renaissance in the 1500s, but then the Industrial Revolution, the 1800s, things started to accelerate. We started to get the scientific method dialed in. We started to be able to learn, and all the principles of physics from Newton in the early days and all the math that had come before. I don't mean to get too nerdy on you, but it started that the technology change started to impact our world around that time. And it was still much slower than it is today, but there's a pathway that technology is taking. I'm sure you've probably heard of the concept of Moore's law. This guy, Gordon Moore, in fact, he just died a few weeks ago, sadly. He was one of the founders and leaders of Intel, and he came up with this famous dictum, and that roughly every 2 years or so, the processing power of an integrated circuit will double every couple years. And when you think of that, that's an example of exponential growth. I'm probably going too deep into this, but when things double over time, they create a dramatic acceleration. And when something is a brand new baby idea, like solar panels 50 years ago, doubling from a very small number, nobody notices for a while. 0.0002 going to 0.0004 to 0.0008. Nobody knows, but all of a sudden it goes from 2 to 4 to 8 to 16 to 32 to 64 to, and things rapidly progress. And that's what we're experiencing today. Everybody's seems to be so surprised by ChatGPT and all these artificial intelligence technologies and tools that are coming into our world, and it seems surprising, but they've all been baking for many years. And there's a guy named Ray Kurzweil, very wonderful inventor and scientist, and he's with Google now, but he actually studied this concept of Moore's law and saw that it applies to almost any information product, like cell phone penetration, fax machines, internet usage, solar panel power production, the number of electric cars. You can almost apply that to any information-based technology. And what we're doing is going into a time in our humanity's history where the game is changing so fast. Every 5 years, things are radically changing. And society, we're animals. We're based on biological evolution. So we're used to, glacial pace change. And our world is moving into this acceleration, and it's frightening. It's frightening people. I think that's what's leading to a lot of the division in our politics, is that people are afraid and they don't know how to digest that change. So you talk about society, the impact that these technologies are having, the idea of automating and AI and machine learning. So many jobs have gone away, so many things have changed. People's cheese gets moved very often, and it's hard for society to keep up. Anyway, that's a long-winded answer to your question, but that's what I think about. And AI, there's a lot of fear out there. What happens when the day that the computers become smarter than we are? That's a theoretical moment called the singularity. That's this guy, Ray Kurzweil, thinks that'll happen in roughly 2040, 2045. I believe it might happen sooner. Some people believe it never will, but just think for a moment what that impact will be when, and that's just another part of this progression. And I hope our society makes it through.
I'm totally with you on the exponential increase and speed at which it's happening that we're not comfortable with. And it sounds like the real impact it's having on humanity, in your perspective, is fear. And that's really the causing. I mean, yes, it's having other impacts on society, but fear tends to be more of the emotional response that we're having and reaction to it.
Yeah, I'd say that's a big one. It's not the only thing I think about. There's just such wonderful abundance that comes from it, and the lives that many people are fortunate to have, leverages and benefits from that abundance, and not everyone, that's for sure. But yes, there is a lot of fear. People are grateful, but they don't. A lot of people don't even understand how rich and abundant life is because of the technologies we have. It's easier and more natural to be afraid because it's ambiguous, and it's like driving a car in town at 100 miles an hour. If we're fortunate, we'll stay, in the lane, and we'll be fine, and we'll see our way through. But it's a high paced, high risks scenario, so people are afraid. It's ambiguous for people.
And I love, I mean, and for right or for wrong, whether they should or shouldn't be afraid, that I'm not here to judge on that, but really looking at what's happening with that and the response that's part of it. It kind of makes me go to navigating that fear, and particularly when you're in scalable leadership and you're focusing on that growth and those pressures that come with it. How do you think that your clients or even the businesses that you work with navigate some of that fear as they try to adopt either new technology or new ways of doing things and look for that scalable solution?
Well, the word we used a minute ago, ambiguity, is it's a very big word, a very powerful word, and the world of business. So I'll move away from technology. I don't think a lot of these business owners are really grappling with that accelerating pace. It's consciously, and I think we have underlying nervousness about it. Some people are actively thinking about it, but it's true that almost every company and every business leader faces ambiguity, and he or she, part of being a leader is helping the the people that are part of their team and about part of their orbit is to help them handle that ambiguity and deal with it. And one of the ways that we find really helps is to simplify and pull out the essential pieces and have a framework that you can use to understand the context of the changes and the challenge that the company is in. And so you asked me how we're doing it. And a lot of this involves technology, but it's not just about technology. It's about the ambiguity of business. And we like to use a metaphor, island A and island B. Island A is where the company is today, and it could be, often is, stuck in some ways, could be uncomfortable, could be, could be a wonderful place, Island A. But just across, near the horizon, just across the water, is another island, the island where you, as a business owner or leader, where you really want to live the life, the kind of life you want to live, and the kind of business you want to have, and the kind of impact that you want to have on the world. And you're sitting in Island A, and you can see Island B, but there's a lot of water in between. And when you get out into it, you find that the current is going against you, and there's big waves and storm clouds, and the people, you and the people that work with you, are subject to fear, and it gets complicated. And so, to answer your question, I think the answer is to develop the skills and have the framework for dealing with that ambiguity and moving forward and building a stronger boat that can get you to Island B. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's a metaphor that we use, and that's how I would tie into what you said.
I love the metaphor. I love the future version, the ideal version, how you're navigating between those two. And it does have a lot to do sometimes with fear on what holds people back. Sometimes it is just confusion. The ambiguity, I think, is a much better word than fear. I do see the technology sparking a lot of fear with that, a lot of trepidation. I'll even say in the last couple of years, the amount of fear or hesitancy, perhaps might be a better way of putting it. They're
Mm-hmm.
all things that are driven by that kind of underlining concern or challenge or fear. And it's interesting that, and I'm with you, some business owners kind of see the technology on the horizon. You have the early adopters, of course, and they're kind of trying to figure it out and noodle with it. And I see that that clash so often in organizations when you do have someone that's very forward thinking, when they're looking at chat GPT, because that's on everyone's mind right now, and how they're adopting it, how they're integrating it, and you see that pushback, even if it is in the ambiguity, even if it is
Hmm.
in between. How are you seeing leaders rectify those two, or at least align their team, or get them out of that fear, out of that stagnation, into being able to row towards Island B?
Well,
Or is it just a push pull
it
strategy?
I it starts with the real fundamentals. We call it the purpose set, which is being extremely clear about the mission of your company. Why are we here together? What are we trying to achieve in the world? To have real solid clarity around our core values. What do we believe in? What are the standards that we have? What do we demand from ourselves and from our customers? And the guiding principles, how do you define those? You know, those are, a lot of people consider those to be soft issues, but they actually enable people to come together and find comfort in that, that the clarity around that, and then also the vision of what they want to build, a very detailed picture of Island B, if you will, to, so they know where they're going, they know why they're going there, and they start to then turn and they know what they're willing to tolerate and what they expect from one another, and then they can start to look at the how. So Simon Sinek was right. It's why are we doing this? What are we trying to build? And then how are we going to get to Island B? That is the number one way to start to combat that ambiguity. And then it's very natural to get clear on who's going to do this, who's responsible, who's accountable, and what are the actual priorities and action steps that will lead to that place. And that sounds very big picture, but it actually gets very detailed, and that's really the underpinnings of strategic planning and really building that long-term progression towards Island B.
And I love the methodology, and it's very clean and it's very concise and beautifully put. Um,
Thank
what
you.
happens when they don't have a Brad Fisher in their rowboat? What have you seen organizations do, and when they're not putting these things together, or when they're struggling in that ambiguity?
We call that the scalability trap. It happens a lot. And there are six, we call them, six nasty words that they're really symptoms of being stuck in this scalability trap. And I bet you and our listener viewers are going to resonate with some of these. But and most companies don't have all six, but many companies will have two or more. First, we talked about ambiguity, a lack of purpose, lack of direction, complexity buffeting us from all directions. The second one is stagnation, really feeling like we're flatlining, we're not growing. And that doesn't mean just revenue growth. It means growth in our capacity, growth in our relationships, growth in our ability in our power. But certainly that shows up a lot in revenue growth. Then scarcity. A lot of these companies then will start to shrink in and feel a sense of scarcity in terms of resources, in terms of money, in terms of, oh, we can't find the talent we need. Oh, these millennials just don't know how to work these days. They expect all that, there's all of this scarcity thinking where things are inadequate, and especially profits and cash. A lot of business owners and leaders think all we need is more money and we'll be fine. Another is mistrust. When some of these symptoms come up, then people start questioning one another, and they start to feel a lack of accountability and commitment from one another, and instability results from that. That's number 5. Shaky operational foundation, quality variations up and down, losing clients unexpectedly, and another outshoot of that is really this inconsistency, that we have lackluster quality and jerky progress. So ambiguity, stagnation, scarcity, mistrust, instability, and inconsistency. Those are the 6 nasty words that are symptoms of being stuck in the scalability trap. 1 or 2 or 3 of those permeating your culture. And what does that lead to? 4 really uncomfortable outcomes. First is fear. People are afraid. We talked about that earlier. Second is frustration. How many business leaders do we see that go home at night and they, they're just mad about the day? And that is cohabitates with exhaustion. People are tired. They think they work for their company rather than their company existing to work for them. And the fourth outcome is often, sadly, financial challenges, because you get those, fear, frustration, exhaustion. You're probably not going to be as creative or on your game or proactive, embracing new ideas and technologies as you could. And so you're going to slide back. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's how we look at the scalability trap.
It does, but I kind of want to bring it full circle because just talking about this acceleration progression of technology, the effects
Mm-hmm.
that it's happening, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to say it's from a humanity as a whole, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also on that individual level. And I focus a lot on that individual and self-leadership. And when you
Oh,
talk
yes.
about the challenge of ambiguity or flatlining or scarcity or this mistrust or that instability, and
Mm-hmm.
the impact that it's having on the individual, I see that with technology adoption, where it's that fear that we talk so much about is that
Mm-hmm.
first barrier for it. And you see people slowly decline through your other four emotions where
Uh-huh.
they are unable to adapt, where they are unable to move forward, where they do start to isolate themselves and push themselves out without having that, for lack of a better phrase, I'll say mindset
Mm-hmm.
towards what's open, what's out there, what is happening in the world. And you see people almost disengage from it in a
Mm-hmm.
really unproductive way that ends up hurting themselves. Not that I'm
Right.
saying society is disengaging from it, but you
Mm-hmm.
kind of slowly see that shift and that trend
Yeah.
move
Yeah.
to follow it.
Mm-hmm. And groups disengage from it. Companies disengage from it. Yeah. It's funny. Individuals are just a collection of cells, trillions of cells, and groups are a collection of individuals. And there's a lot of parallels to the psychology of a group, between the psychology of a group and a psychology of an individual.
Yeah. I'll say right now we're probably in that first stage of that fear. What did you say comes after the fear was the
Oh, frustration,
frustration?
and then exhaustion, and then with companies and with individuals too, financial troubles
Yeah.
often accompany those. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I see the fear first. We'll go into frustration next as people try to adopt. I know watching people adopt new technology can definitely be frustrating. Watching an organization change.
Yeah, well, we're talking transformation, and technology is driving that transformation, but it's not just about technology. It's about the structure of an organization, and as it grows, it's about um, transforming that caterpillar of that emerging stage company into the butterfly of a growth stage company. There's actually structural differences, major differences between an emerging stage company, which is where let's say roughly $5 million in revenue and earlier, from the first dollar of revenue to 5 million. We characterize that as the emerging stage, and the growth stage runs from 5 to $250 million in revenue. 5 to 50 million is early growth stage, and 50 to 250 is mature growth stage. And the the caterpillar of that emerging company, when you think of a caterpillar and a butterfly, they share the same DNA. They have the same brain stem. They have the same, whatever you call, insect blood. It's the same creature, but they're radically different. A caterpillar has no idea what it's like to be a butterfly. It has no concept. It just crawls and eats. And if the butterfly tries to live like a caterpillar, it's only going to survive for a few minutes. They're different creatures, but yet they're the same creature. And that's what happens with companies. So you ask, we take those 6 words: ambiguity, stagnation, scarcity, mistrust, instability, inconsistency. We need to convert those into 6 positive words. So instead of ambiguity, we need to find clarity. Instead of stagnation, it's customers. And we need money, leverage, power, and effectiveness. Those are the 6 anti words to those nasty six: clarity, customers, money, leverage, power, and effectiveness. Those outcomes are growth. The outcomes from those: growth, prosperity, impact, and time. That's why we start our companies in the first place, is so we can have that, so we can grow as individuals and as a group, so we can generate wealth and prosperity and comfort, so we can have an impact on our world in some way, and so we can have the gift of time, so we can enjoy our lives, find joy in our work, and you know and that's the name of the game. Does that
Brad,
make sense?
it absolutely does. It is always illuminating talking with you. I love the parallels between this. I love how the organizations that get to work with you, how fortunate they are that they get to move into those types of the positive words, moving out of those negative ones, and have someone to truly guide them on that journey, because it is not an easy transformation. It is full of pitfalls, and you and your team do such a beautiful job of ensuring that they're doing so with grace and support and authentically to their caterpillar brains, their caterpillar DNA, we'll say. It was lovely chatting. Is there anything else that you'd like to share before we wrap it up?
No, I would just like to say thank you. I always enjoy our conversations. You are the bomb, and I appreciate being able to be here with you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Brad. If anyone listening wants to get connected with him, we will put all of your contact details in the show notes. Brad is just such a fabulous scalability consultant, and truly just moves mountains and changes the lives of his organizations and teams. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for listening.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Culture Conversations. I'm your host, Megan Robinson, founder of eLeader Experience, a professional leadership development company. Today, we shared actionable ideas to navigate the evolving workplace landscape, compete for talent, and build cultures that maximize potential. If you're looking to learn more about how to support your organization's leaders, you can learn more about our work at eleaderexperience.com. Now get out there and contribute positively to your organization's culture with your own conversations.